All right. Greetings, ETM Hotep. Welcome to the Seshu channel, which is short for the Seshu Mani Meta Netcher YouTube channel. I am your brother Wujau Menib Edi Ma'at, and I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's live stream. All right, so since we're just getting started and I see a few people have tuned in, want to greet everyone, and maybe I can do a quick roll call to send my greetings to everyone. We have Ankoma Jed, and it's been a long time since I've seen a few of you. Now that we're back doing live streams, so I just want to send my greetings to everyone. It's nice to see everyone again and tuning in. Greetings to Rich the African Elder. Greetings again to Alexis. Let's see, who else do we have to greet? Immortal Truth. Peace. We have Jehudi Ma'at in the building. Peace to the brother Jehudi Ma'at down there in Florida. All right, so that's all I see who's actually made themselves known in the chat and typing. So again, greetings to everyone who's tuned in. And I'm trying to clear this out. All right. So as you can see, the first of all, I'm giving these greetings out, but I always like to double check to make sure that everyone can hear me. So if anyone in the chat can just verify that I'm being heard loud and clear, and we can move on into tonight's live stream. All right. And as you all can see the title, this is Egyptian Hieroglyphic, the nuts and bolts of the writing system. And today is June 3rd, 2024. All right, so we're going to get into a bit of learning. Now, for those of you, well, I'm keep on talking. I haven't seen anybody verify that you can hear me. All right, I got one. Ankoma Jed said he gave me, appreciate it. So for those of you who are brand new to our channel, and brand new to the Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system and the language and everything, then this is definitely will be very interesting for you, what I'm going to discuss tonight. And for those who are already familiar, then you can treat this as a refresher. And for those of you who are seasoned veterans, likewise, you can treat this as a refresher and maybe share some of your information and your experiences when dealing with the language in the chat. And maybe later on I can open it up for a few questions we can address, and maybe even the panel, or may start a totally separate live stream for open discussions. All right. But on this live stream here right now, I just want to go over, as the title says, the nuts and bolts of the writing system, some very, very basic and fundamental principles of the writing system. Now, when you're learning the ancient Egyptian language, you're going to have to learn two things at once. And the first of those two things is definitely everything about the writing system. How does the writing system work? How does the hieroglyphic writing system work? All right, that's going to be your first thing that you have to gain competency in and even strive to master. You have to do that. Without that, you're not going to get anywhere in studying the language at all. So it's to your best interest to definitely master the writing system, how it works, how it functions, and so on. So I'm just gonna give a bit of an overview of the nuts and bolts of the writing system. I'm not gonna go into a lot of detail. That's what we have classes for. And just want to make sure everyone knows that we do have classes available, and they're course on the beginners level of the Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system is available right now, and it'll be available all year. Okay, and you can register and sign up at any time The way the course is designed is that you essentially go at your own pace. When you sign up for the course, you will either have to purchase the beginner's textbook, or if you already have it, then you'll be told, you'll be instructed to use it. And you can go through the course at your own pace because the course is designed to go from cover to cover, utilizing the textbook. And if you spend a lot of time at one time at the computer, you can literally go through the whole course in a week. Now, I wouldn't advise it, but you can go as fast or as slow as you need. Now, what's beneficial about the course is once a week, and possibly adding another day in the week, making it twice a week. But at the very least, once a week, I hold classes, live classes, where anyone who's enrolled in the course can attend. And even past students, people who have signed up a long time ago and may or may not have finished the course, and those who have signed up and actually finished the course. It's open to anyone who's ever signed up for our course. And once a week we meet, and then any questions are addressed about the course, no matter where you are in the course, whether you're in chapter 1, chapter 2, whether you're talking about monoliterals, biliterals, etc. So we deal with it that way. That way, it's best that I found, because of the different time zones that everyone lives in, and signing up for the course, it made it very, very difficult. When I first started offering online courses or online classes, it was very difficult to schedule the classes because we had a lot of students on the continent of Africa. Then you had East Africa. Then you had some students in the UK, students in Canada, and then the three or so time zones in the United States. So it definitely got very, very difficult for me to manage all of that. At one point in time, I had to actually teach class at 4 a.m. My time, and so that was definitely a strain on me. But I did it because I want to see everyone win when it comes to their passion to study the Egyptian language and culture. So all of that changed, and now it's self-paced, but we meet once a week and could chime in no matter where you are in the study. All right. So hopefully Emiket can post the link in the chat, and I believe she did, to the course. So make sure that bookmark it if you don't want to sign up now. But remember, it's self-paced. You can sign up at any time. All right. So just wanted to make that announcement. And by the way, let me introduce my co-host, Sonet Emikeraku Kenshai Akinyi.
Hotepu in the building.
All right. Okay, so I just want to dive in. Just kind of gave a little bit of an intro there, and again, peace to everyone who's joined after I gave a roll call. See, we have the brother Robert Rand is in the building. Peace, greetings. Everything is everything. Peace and greetings. Ramza, greetings. Zane, greetings. And that's all I see now. All right. So let's just dive in. Now, just as a kind of show of hands in the chat, how many of you are, let's see, how should I ask this? Okay, let's do it this way. Type in 0 if you have zero knowledge about the Egyptian language, the writing system and the language, that you haven't taken any courses, and you haven't, picked up any books and tried to teach yourself yet or anything like that, but you're interested. Okay, so type 0 if you are interested in learning the language. but you just haven't made a move to do so yet. Type in 0 for that. Type in 1 if you are studying the language, but you consider yourself a beginner or a novice. All right, type in 1 for that. Type in 2 if you are studying the language and you consider yourself a little bit more advanced. All right, a little more seasoned and advanced. So 0, 1, or 2. I just want to see, just kind of get an idea of the you guys in the chat. It's important for me to kind of know this because the way that I'm about to go about explaining things, I want to make sure that everyone is satisfied. All right, that's my goal. You're going to leave here and you have learned something. All right, something. Okay, so I see some zeros. I see a few ones. I see 2. So Robert Rand is a seasoned veteran. All right. Indigenous black man, 1. All right. So let's dive into it. So that's good. I just wanted to kind of get an idea. And, like I said, everybody is welcome. Whether you are a veteran, you could be a professor at the Chicago Oriental Institute or just the average Joe down the block. None of that matters. But it matters in what I lean on in terms of explaining my explanations. Okay, so we're going to dive into it. Again, Egyptian hieroglyphic, the nuts and bolts of the writing system. What you see on the screen here are the hieroglyphs for the phrase Sesh ni Medew Netcher. Sesh ni Medew Netcher. And you're going to see this a lot, especially dealing with me and even in the course, because this is the name of the writing system that the ancient Egyptians called their writing system. The word sesh means, as a verb, it means to scribe. And of course, as a noun, substantive, it is talking about a scribe, a person who scribes. Then you have ni, which is the word of, and then Medew Netcher. Now, different people translate Medew Netcher differently. So you may see words of God. Some people will say divine words, and others may say God's words. All right. So no matter who you speak to and you hear that variety, you're talking about the same thing, the ancient Egyptian writing system. Okay, so that's what you see on the screen. All right, so let's move on. Now, I do need some chat or crowd participation. And I want anyone in the chat or all of you in the chat to try to read this paragraph that's on the screen. And obviously I can't hear you read it, but if you can read it successfully, type 1. If you can read this paragraph on the screen successfully, type 1. All right. And when I ask the chat questions, there's obviously a little latency or delay. So when I ask you a question, I'm going to keep talking, but I would still like to see you all answer the question. So if you can read this paragraph successfully, type 1. Hopefully I'll see some ones in the chat. And mind you, I'm looking for chat participation because this is an engagement live stream that we're doing. All right. With the goal, I hope you all leave satisfied and have learned something. All right. So, okay. I see some ones there. We have quite a few ones. All right. Nice. All right. So I see some ones in there. All right, great. Now, let me get back my cursor over here. Okay, so I'm going to read it out loud. It says, for those who may not have read it successfully, it says, according to the research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be at the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read it without a problem. Without problem. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. All right. Now, if this is your first time seeing something like this or exercise like this, it should definitely spark some interest in your mind as to why were you able to read it, but it looks like mumbo jumbo when you kind of glance at it. It just look like mumbo jumbo, but you can actually read it, and it tells you why you're able to read it, because the way our minds work, we look at words as a whole, which is another way of saying that we lean towards patterns, and we're not dissecting or decoding letter by letter. We're looking at larger chunks of patterns. That's how our mind works. Okay, larger chunks of patterns, and this is important to know about yourself. This is something that we need to know about our capabilities, because it's something that we're gonna do with the Egyptian writing system. Whether you realize it or not, it's going to be what you do. All right. So let's start off by asking, what is a writing system? Because you hear me say the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system. So what is a writing system? So briefly, a writing system is any conventional method of visually representing verbal communication. That's another way of saying that is writing is the visual representation of speech. Okay. So it moves it from your ears as the receiving organ over to your eyes. Okay, so think of it that way. So a writing system allows you to move communication from receiving it in your ears over to your eyes. All right, visual representation of speech or communication. While both writing and speech are useful in conveying messages, writing differs in also being a reliable form of information storage and transfer. A set of physical written signs is called a script. The process of encoding and decoding writing systems involve shared understanding between writers and readers of the meaning behind the sets of characters that make up a script. The set of rules relating a given set of written signs to the linguistic units represented is called an orthography. Now, there's a lot more that I can elaborate on with what I just read, and I've done so already in our archives. I went over a video, and I think the video is entitled "What is a Word?" or something to that effect, and maybe Emiket can post a link to it if you want to check it out later. But I went more in depth about this sentence here, where it says the process of encoding and decoding writing systems involved a shared understanding between writers and readers of the meaning behind the sets of characters. Okay, that's a whole, I can have a whole another conversation about that. Okay, but we're going to keep it moving because, like I said, I'm just giving you an overview. All right. So now with that, like I said, I can go into a lot more depth here, but for now, I would just let you know that what we're calling words or a word is really made up of 3 elements. Okay. Every word that you could think of that we call a word is really made up of 3 elements. One is the form. The other one is the function or the concept. And then the third element is the glue that connects the two. Okay. And like I said, I did a whole video explaining all of that in detail. But for now, just know that a word has form and function, or the form and the concept side of a word. It's like 2 sides of a coin, of the same coin. All right. Now, when it comes to form, the question is, what are the hieroglyphs? What are they? And the answer is simple. So visually, on their own, each Sesh, Medew, Netcher sign is a pictograph, and it consists of pictures of the natural flora, fauna, and man-made objects indigenous to the Nile Valley corridor. And then, for instance, we have some examples. We have a water lily, elephant, lion, crocodile, giraffe, owl. Now, as a side note or FYI, I want to underscore the picture, what the pictures are of. They're of flora, fauna, natural flora, fauna, and man-made objects indigenous to the Nile Valley corridor, the Delta and the Nile of ancient Egypt. That's a side note because it's interesting that in the history of Egyptology and even, people who are studying ancient Egypt, in the past, people have been making claims that the ancient Egyptian civilization was started by people outside of the continent of Africa, the Middle East, the Levant, even Europe, But it's interesting that the writing system, the pictures that are used throughout the entire writing system are of things that are indigenous to Africa, to ancient Egypt. So, in other words, you're not going to find a polar bear glyph. You're not going to find a tiger glyph because tigers are Asian cats, felines. So hopefully you all get what I'm saying with that. That's just a little side note, FYI. But again, what are the hieroglyphs? They're pictures, okay? To put plain and simple, they're pictures of things. Every last one of them is a picture of something. All right. Now let's move on. So to explain what a pictogram or pictograph is. Now, pictogram and pictograph are used synonymously in terms of two words. So I have them both here in case you do some studying on your own and you come across either one of those words. All right. Now, technically, they are different, but not enough to matter when you're learning about and reading about them. So, drawing is the origin of writing all over the world. Most signs of early writing systems are pictographic in origin. So what are pictographs? Pictographs are signs, or glyphs, I should say, that represent particular images in a consistent way. A conventional relationship must exist between the symbol and the object being depicted. In other words, the object depicted and the meaning are always the same. And we nickname that WYSIWYG, which stands for what you see is what you get. So now, to put that another way, if a glyph functions as a pictogram or pictograph, if it functions that way, then what you see is the meaning. So what you see is what you get. So if you see a picture of the sun, then the intended meaning is the sun. If you see a picture of an elephant, the intended meaning is the elephant. So what you see is what you get. All right. Now, the word pictograph, just to give a history on the word itself, the word pictograph is from two Latin words. Pictus, or two words. Pictus meaning painted, and grapho meaning to write. So it's picture writing. All right. So now, on the bottom here, I'm showing a drawing of the sun and then the same sun being stylized to where multiple people can reproduce the same image. Okay. So, and this is like a kind of side note that you should keep in mind at the development of writing, because just think about it. If every one of you in the chat was to be assigned to draw an elephant, all of you, some of you can draw, some of you can't draw very well, and you might have a stick figure as an elephant. Somebody may go all out and draw an elephant with the ashy skin and all of the details and things like that. So it can get kind of crazy. So what happens over time are these images start becoming stylized to where everyone can draw the same thing. All right. So just keep that in mind. That's what's meant by things becoming stylized. All right. So moving on. So now that we know what the hieroglyphs are, that answers the question, what are they? Now the question is, how do they function? So what they are pictographs. All right. So that's easy to remember. All of the hieroglyphs are pictures of something. That's all you need to know. Easy enough. But now, how do they function? How do they function? I already kind of told you about a pictograph and how it functions. It's what you see is what you get. You see the picture, whatever the picture is, that's the intended meaning that it's trying to convey. So now, the question, what are the roles of these pictographs? All right. So now you have to definitely follow along. Now, each glyph used to write a given word generally functions in one of the following roles. Okay, remember, only one role at a time. And role number one is as a logograph. And I'm gonna explain each one of these. Number two, phonograph. And three, what a lot of people like to call determinatives. Okay, so remember those three: logograph, phonograph, determinative. And this is how they can function in one of those possible ways. All right. Now, what I didn't mention out of the three is a word ideograph or ideogram. And there's a reason why I didn't mention that, but I'm explaining it here anyway. An ideograph, because if you look these things up, you're gonna definitely come across this word, ideograph. You're definitely gonna come across it. And what is it? What are ideographs? Ideographs are signs that are used to represent a concept or idea independent of any particular language and specific words or phrases. The word ideograph or ideogram is from the Greek idea, idea for idea, and grapho to write. So it's idea writing. All right. So hopefully everyone got that. An example here is this ideograph representing heat or daytime. And the easy thing to understand this is pretty much abstract things that are not tangible. Because heat, you can't draw heat. You can't heat is not an object that you can take a picture of. You can't take a picture of heat per se, or it's a tangible object. Same with daytime, nighttime. The word love, like love, you can't directly. It's not a material object. Okay. Now moving on to the actual three that I mentioned. The first being a logograph or logogram. Now, the decisive stage in the development of writing comes when drawings are stylized, which are pictographs, and become representations not of the object itself, but of the word, which is a logograph, representing the object. Okay, hopefully everybody understands that. Logographs, what are they? Logographs are signs or glyphs that function as graphic representations of specific morphemes, words, or phrases in a language. The word logogram is from the Greek logos, meaning word, and grapho, write. So it's word writing. Although the same sign, and this is important, although the same sign can be used as a logograph in different languages, the way it is pronounced can be different, depending on the language in which it is functioning as a logograph. This is due to the fact that logographs themselves do not indicate their pronunciations. Okay, and I want to repeat that. A glyph that functions as a logograph or logographs, period. The logograph itself does not indicate its pronunciation. The logograph is all in itself, only when it's used in a particular language. So it's language dependent. All right. And just to pause here for a second, if you have questions about anything that I'm saying, just jot it down on a side note, and then I'm gonna open it up for questions and try to address anyone's questions as best I can when I'm done. All right. And remember, this is an overview, so I'm not going to be too long, but I will open it up for Q&A about anything that I'm mentioning. So save it, and I may post a link if you want to come on the panel. If it's easier to kind of have a dialogue that way, then we can do that. Okay, but let's continue. Briefly, MK, you have anything to add so far, or anything, or I could just keep it going?
Nah, I think you can keep it going.
All right. So let's move on. Now here are some logograph examples, and I have 4 languages here: English, German, Swedish, and French. Across the top, I have the actual logograph itself. So you see this character right here, and can you all see my cursor? I hope you all can see my cursor. Can someone
Yeah, I can
verify
see
for
it.
me? Okay. I want to make sure on the YouTube side, just to be sure, because I'm doing all this pointing and I want to make sure everyone can see my cursor. Anyone in the chat, just please verify for me that you can see my cursor. I'm moving it all around. Just any one of you could just verify that for me. Okay, LA, Oklahoma says yes. All right, appreciate it. Okay. That's good. I was like, phew. All right. I'm pointing to everything. Okay. So across the top, I have the logographic characters themselves, or characters that are serving as logographs. So we have this character here is a logograph. This one here is a logograph. This one here is a logograph. Now, what's interesting is when I point to this logograph right here, your mind, I guarantee you, everyone in the chat's mind says in your mind, you're going to say 1, and you're going to say 2 for this, and you're going to say 3 for this. Why? Because your mind is conditioned with the English signs. We speak English. Okay, so when you see these 3 logographs, your mind is going to it's going to dip into the language that is functioning in, and then it's going to represent a word. Remember, the word logos comes from logos, meaning word. So this character represents a full word. In English, this word happens to be 1. This one 2. This one 3. Now, in German, the pronunciation and spelling is completely different. Now, I can't speak German, pronounce German words very well, so I'm not even going to attempt. But you can see on the screen. I think, Emika, you speak German forward and backward. No, but I think you could pronounce these words, right? The German first 3 numbers. Yes, no?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I was saying nah.
Okay. Well,
Or
I'll
my
attempt.
pronunciation, I'll butcher it. Eins.
I'll attempt. Eins, zwei, drei. Drei, zwei, eins. Don't make fun of me with my pronunciations of German. Okay. But the point here is that the same logograph, the exact same character, is used for all 4 languages, but yet the pronunciations are different. The pronunciations are different. You have 1, eins, et, un for 1 in these 4 languages. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So I'm just giving you examples of logographs. That's what they are. So now this is very important. The conventional use of the term ideogram has extended its meaning to also include representations of literal objects, which are pictographs. Remember, I said what you see is what you get. That's pictographs. And words, which is what we just discussed, logographs. Logographs. So the word ideograph or ideogram, the way it's used among scholars and throughout academia, it has expanded to include pictographs and logographs. And I'm pointing that out because that becomes very confusing when you're learning, at least when you're learning the Egyptian writing system. So in our course, and the way I've been teaching for over 10 years, I make sure to use the technical terms for all these things and not the kind of generic term in a generic way as ideogram. All right. Now, so I continue to say, although these words differ in their technical meaning, it is not uncommon to see them used interchangeably by scholars. And that's what I mean. So what I'm saying is that pictographs, ideographs, and logographs, all three of these tend to become synonymous, and they're all called ideograms in various different books. Okay, so that's just to kind of let people know to be mindful if you're studying, or if you have different books that you're reading, you will definitely see the word ideogram. Okay, all right, so we're gonna keep it moving. To continue, now we're gonna move on to phonograms. Now remember, I said 3: logograph, phonograph, and determinatives. So now we're on number 2, phonographs. So what are phonographs? Phonographs are glyphs that represent not things, but sounds of the language. That's important. And it's easy to remember that. Why? Because the word phonogram is from the Greek word phone, which means voice or sound. Everybody can think of their cell phone. And then grapho, to write. So it's sound writing. There are phonographs that represent one consonant, and they're called monoliterals. There are phonographs that represent 2 consonants. They're called biliterals. And then there are phonographs that represent 3 consonants, called triliterals. Now, what I don't have here is that there are also phonographs that represent more than 3 consonants, and we simply refer to them, any one of them that represent 2 or more, as multiliterals. Okay, so multiliterals will be bi, tri, quad, quin. Okay, just so you follow that. But the majority of the glyphs in the Egyptian writing system are going to be mono, bi, or tri. But they do exist quad and quin, meaning 4 and 5. All right. Now, all early writing systems make use of what's called the Rebus Principle. And I have it bolded here. You all can jot it down if you never heard of it, and make sure you look more into it. I'm only giving an overview here. In which a pictographic glyph, originally representing one word, is used to represent another word with the same or similar sound value. Okay, now remember that. We're going to come back to that. But for now, I'm visually giving you a breakdown of what I just covered. So remember, all of the hieroglyphs themselves are pictographs. That's what they are. There's no getting around that. They're pictures of something. But now how they function is one of 3 ways in any given word. And it can only function as one of these 3 ways at a given time. Okay, so it's either logograph, phonograph, or determinative. Now, out of the phonographs, we could further break it down. There's phonographs that represent 1 consonant, 2 consonants, or 3. And like I said, there's quad and quin as well. But the primary focus will be 1, 2, and 3. All right. Okay. So now back to the Rebus principle that I mentioned. What is a rebus? Briefly, a rebus is a message spelled out in pictures that represent sounds rather than the things that they're pictures of. Okay. So in other words, to put it another way, the Rebus principle is the reverse of pictographs. It's the unpacking of what a pictogram or pictograph is. Remember, a pictograph is what you see is what you get. So the picture itself conveys the meaning, the object that it's a picture of. A rebus is the other way. Okay, it removes the meaning of the object itself, and it replaces the meaning to represent sounds. All right, now it's going to become clear as we see this example. A popular rebus example. So the pictures of an eye, like a human eye, an insect of the bee, and a leaf that falls off a tree can be put together as an English rebus, meaning I believe. So if we say it individually, this is an eye, this is a bee, this is a leaf. I, be, leaf. And it becomes a rebus to say the short phrase, I believe. Now check this out. When I say I believe, the meaning of what you're saying and what you're trying to convey has nothing to do with a human eye. It has nothing to do with a bee, and has nothing to do with a leaf. But yet I can use these three objects or pictures of these three objects to convey this meaning. Why and how? Because of the sounds of what this object represents. So what is this? It's a leaf. How do we say it? Leaf. What's this? A bee. We say it bee. What's this? An eye. So we say eye. And I can use the sounds of the names of these things, put them together, and mean something totally different. I believe. Okay? So hopefully you all follow that. And remember, again, I will be taking questions. We're going to have a brief Q&A after this. All right? So if you're confused about anything, let me know. Now, real quick, this slide here is just going over what a word is. Now, like I said, I did a whole video going, elaborating a whole lot on this concept of a word. What is a word? And it seems weird because we've been speaking English all our lives. We use words all the time, but we really don't know what a word is, even though we use them, because we don't have to focus on we don't have to nitpick on what it is, because we just use them. We just inherently use them from when we're babies, when we start talking. All right. But what a word is, like I said, is three elements. It's like two sides of a coin and then the rim. So a word is made of form, which is the sound pattern in the case of speaking, or the written pattern in case of writing. And then the other side is the concept side, or the meaning side. So you have form and meaning, and then the glue that glues those two things together. All of that makes up a word. All right. That's important to know. And maybe I'll redo that video that I did years ago. Maybe, we'll go over that again. But to continue with the rebus. So now this is a famous rebus. So I'm going to read it. It says, it's hard to believe some people because they, what? So you see that visual rebus. So everybody in the chat, what is this word here? What, like, continue the sentence, the ... what? It's hard to believe some people because they what? Be lying. Exactly. Benny San, got it. Trying to highlight your comment. There you go. Benny San got it. I'm sure everyone gets it. All right. So that is a rebus. Be lying. Now check this out. A lion and a bee have nothing to do with the act of lying, like telling an untruth, not telling the truth. Not telling the truth has nothing to do with a lion or a bee. But I can use the sound of what these that insect and that animal is to convey that, though. Okay, so that's a rebus. That's what a rebus is. Zane says, if I'm lying, I'm flying. That's a good one. If I'm lying, I'm flying. All right. So let's continue. Now, here is an actual ancient Egyptian rebus. Okay, and not too many people, like in my experience, not too many people were ever familiar with this, and so it's very, very interesting, and it just shows the genius of the ancient Egyptian writing system and how this stuff was intentionally and consciously done. Okay, so this is an ancient Egyptian rebus right in front of our face. So to explain it, first of all, this is a statue of a young Ramesses. Okay, this is a young Ramesses here as a child. But now, here's what's interesting. In the statue itself, the whole statue itself, we see the elements of the rebus. We have the sun representing Ra, that you see the red arrow pointing to. We have the child, which is the Egyptian word mes. As a verb, it means to give birth, but the results of that birth is a child. So we have mes as a child. And then the child is holding the sedge plant. You see this plant he's holding? It's the sedge plant. And the word sedge in the Egyptian language is the word su. So together we have Ra, Mes, Su, Ramasu, and that is Ramses' name. So what makes this genius or very interesting is that while you're looking at Ramses, you're looking at Ramses. You're looking at Ramses and you're looking at his name. So Ramses is representing his name. It's crazy. So that's very, very interesting. All right. So I hope everybody follow that. And just to kind of keep up with the chat, like I said, I want to be kind of interactive. So type 1. I'm gonna do the type 1s and things. But type 1 if you got it, if you understand that. What you're looking at right now. Ra, Mes, Su, Ramasu, Ramses. Ra gave birth to him. That's what his name means. Ra gave birth to him. Su is him. Mes is to give birth. Ra being the deity Ra. Ra gave birth to him. That's what the name Ramses means. He is the son of the sun, a child of the sun, or the force that is responsible for the sun. But that's for a whole nother conversation. All right, so Ramesses. All right, so we're going to keep on moving. Now we're going to move on to determinatives. Remember, I named three things: logographs, phonographs, and determinatives. So now we're going to finally talk about determinatives. And all of this are how those pictographs can function, the possible ways. So now we're on determinatives. So first, let me say this. Determinatives is what you're going to see in almost all the scholarly works. Anybody that talks about the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic system, you're going to see the word determinative. Now, that is a nickname pretty much, and it's a name that's used as a consensus among people who write about it, but it's kind of out. It's kind of dated. The new way of calling these glyphs that this function is more so as classifiers. So you're going to hear me, if you're dealing with me, you're going to hear me refer to them as classifiers, but I say both. It doesn't cause for, any argument or pushback or at all, but classifiers is a better description of what these glyphs function as. Okay. And even semantimes. And I can explain that another time. But anyway, we're going to just use the popular term determinatives. Now, why is it called determinatives? Well, let me read this first. Words spelled with phonograms usually have one or more glyphs added at the end that serve as classifiers. See, I even have classifiers right here. I should probably underline it, but they serve as classifiers to determine, and that's where they get the nickname determinatives. These classifiers help to determine the range of definitions that are applicable to a particular word. This helps give the semantic category of the word because or as homophonic, which means same sound, signs are common, or glyphs are common. So here's some examples. So we're going to look at this word. This word is transliterated as PRT. You see these three glyphs here? We transliterate this word as PRT, and we conventionally pronounce it as Peret. Peret. Now that is not how the ancient Egyptians pronounced it. That's how we pronounce it today because of the fact that the writing system did not document the vowels. Okay? There's not an explicit or overt vowel documentation in the writing system. But even that is maybe for a whole nother conversation. But anyway, we pronounce this word as Peret. So remember these three glyphs that you see here. So now, in this example, I'm showing three instances, three words where these three glyphs are at the beginning of each of these three words. So we have this enclosure, we have open mouth, and a bread loaf. All right. So we have all three of those beginning of the word. So this first word is transliterated Peret. The second word is transliterated as Peret, PRT. The third word is also transliterated as PRT, Peret. So we would pronounce all three of these words Peret, Peret, Peret. The same. Okay? But notice that what comes after the PRT, these three glyphs, are different in these three words. And because of that, it makes them three distinct words. They're different. So the first one is Peret, but it means season of emergence. Because the last glyph is a disc that puts it into the class or category dealing with time. So this word is in a category dealing with something about time. And a season, ancient Egyptians had 3 seasons. Akhet, Peret, and Shemu. This happened to be the second season in the Egyptian calendar, Peret. Okay? And calendar are timekeeping systems. All right? In case you didn't know. The next one is Peret, which means fruit or seed. And what makes this one different from the first one is because of the classifier. This classifier is a plow that's used for sowing seeds. So it's in a category dealing with something that have to do with farming and everything. So this word Peret, it lets you determine, as it says here, the meaning. So this word means fruit or seed. The last one is Peret, but it has as its final glyph or classifier legs in motion. So this word is going to have to do with something dealing with moving or action, activity. And so this Peret means to exit, to come forth. And I'm sure you all heard that a lot. Ra'u Niyu Peret Im Heru. That's the name of the Book of the Dead. Peret Im Heru. You hear people say it. The book of coming forth by day. That Peret, coming forth, is to exit, to come forth, or to go forth. Come or go. All right? So hopefully that's clear. Now, what I want you to know is that these 3 glyphs, this is a picture of this first glyph here is a picture of an opening of an enclosure. It's an enclosure with an opening. This is a mouth, and this is a bread loaf. But look, the word Peret or this word Peret meaning season of emergence or the second season of the year, it doesn't have anything to do with bread or a mouth or anything like that. So these glyphs here are not used to convey their picture meaning. All right, so this is, again, this is where the rebus comes in. It has nothing to do with the picture. It's only there for the sound. This first glyph, as we're going to find out, it represents two consonants, a P and an R. And this bread loaf represents a T, consonant T. So this is really just spelling the word, not that it has anything to do with bread or a house or a mouth. Okay? All right, so y'all follow that. Next. So I'm using this same glyph right here, this enclosure, this glyph of that's an enclosure with an opening in it. I'm using the same glyph to show how this same glyph can function in those three different ways that we've been talking about: logograph, phonograph, and determinative. So the first example is this glyph functioning as a logograph. Remember what a logograph is. It represents a word in the language. So this glyph represents the word per, which means house or estate. House or estate. And you may see the phrase nebet peret, which means mistress or lady of the house. Nebet peret or nebet per. Number two, next one. The next one, in this example, the glyph functions as a phonograph, which means it's only being used for the consonants it represents. So this glyph represents PR, and then you have the bread loaf, like I said, and this is, again, season of emergence that we saw before, so peret. So in this instance, it's functioning as a phonograph. And then the last example, this word is genret, or some people may say generet. Genret or kineret is the word that means camp and encampment. Camp, set up camp. And this is a classifier, which means that this word is going to have something to do with something that you can get inside of or be enclosed in. And that's what a camp, in this instance, that's what a camp is. That's what this word means, camp. And in this way, it functions as a classifier or determinative. All right. So hopefully y'all got that. What do I have? Okay, so here's some other quick examples. Not gonna spend a lot of time on this, but this is the same glyph that enclosure with an opening there. As a logograph, it represents the word per, which means house. That's what you see up here, right? It means house. As a biliteral or biconsonantal phonograph, it represents the consonants P and R. Okay. Now, mind you, I want to remind you all that when these glyphs are used, they can only be used in one of these three functions at any given point in time when it's used in a word. Now, this glyph can function as any of these three, but it can only function as one at a time when it's used inside of a word. Okay, so the last one is a semantic ideograph or determinative or classifier, which represents the class of habitat. All right, so now quickly go through these examples. This word is put now. All 6 of these words are transliterated the exact same, and we will pronounce them the exact same. Peret, 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 peret. The first one is peret. It means procession. You can see why, because it has the legs in motion. The next one is peret, rising. The next one is peret, progeny. The next one is peret, growth season, which is the season, that we spoke about before. The season of emergence. The next one is peret, fruit. We saw that before. And the last one is peret, which means house maiden. All right. Now, I want you all to see something, to notice something, because I get this all the time in my email and in my inbox. People will inbox me or email me and say, well, Joe, if you don't mind, if you have time, can you tell me what this word means? And they'll give me an Egyptian word, but they'll only give it to me in its transliterated form. So imagine what I have to do. So imagine the situation if somebody were to ask me about Peret and they say, well, Joe, can you tell me what Peret means? And they type PRT. And that's all they ask. Do you see the problem that I would have? I don't know which one they're talking about. So if I try to answer them, I could be giving them the wrong word. So I don't do that. So when people email me and inbox me and ask me like that, I always, every single time, I have to tell them, show me the glyphs. I have to do that every time. I said, send me the glyphs, and then I can tell you what the word means because I'll know which word you're talking about. So hopefully y'all follow that. All right. So hopefully y'all follow that. Okay. Lastly, well, not lastly, we got a few more slides. Now, remember I said that the Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system did not document the vowels. For the most part, it didn't document the vowels. I'll just put it at that. I'll do another show where we can go into more depth. Or, like I said, sign up for the class because everything I'm talking about, we go hard in the paint, as they say. I elaborate on everything down to the last compound. Okay. But anyway, I'm just going to read this. So the Remich, or the ancient Egyptians, did not write out their vowels. At least in the Coptic, by the time you see Coptic, you're going to see vowels. All right. This is similar to Hebrew and Arabic, where a person who is familiar with the language can figure out from the context which words are meant by which groups of signs or glyphs. This is not hard as it seems. For example, now you see this phrase here? What I want everybody in the chat to do is read this phrase right here. Make sure to put my arrow on here. Read the phrase, and because it's short, I want everyone in the chat, type out that phrase right there. Type it out. And like I said, I know there's a delay, but if you don't mind, type out that phrase right there. Type it out. Type it out. I want to see everyone type it out. Get some engagement. Got to make sure the chat, you all are still awake. Y'all still with me. Still following along. Type out that phrase right there. Not as you see it, obviously, but type out what it actually is. If you read it. So read it and type out what you read correctly. And I don't see anybody doing it yet. Okay, there we go. We got our first one. Proper. And by the way, peace to everyone who joined in after I greeted everyone. So again, peace. And I appreciate everybody that's tuned in. We're having fun. We're learning something. And hopefully you walk away satisfied. So we got, you can probably read this without trouble. So I'll just keep his comment up because that is correct. So hopefully everybody else. Oh, actually you missed the word. I jumped the gun. You missed the word. Proper prospect, you missed the word because this one, Gary Hart, I think Benny Sign had it as well. You can probably read this sentence without trouble. Yeah, so
And Zane was forced to have it, the whole pen, actually.
Who?
Zane.
Oh, Zane? Okay. Oh, here it is. Okay, let me get Zane. I got to give the first person the props. Okay. Now, hold up. But Benny San, you're correct. But look at what you did for the first word. You put U, the letter U. You see how your mind now, I know we're used to shorten things when we try to type. And you could possibly be on your phone and you want to type it quick. But if this was a quiz, you would get, that would be X. It would be wrong. You would get this one wrong. Something simple like that. But Zane has it. Okay, so Zane, you say you can probably read this sentence without trouble. Exactly. Now, remember like the other example. This should make you think. It's like, okay, wow, I could actually read this and there's no vowels. There's no vowels in English. There's no vowels in what you just read. But you could still read it. So the point of this is that it's not hard. So the ancient Egyptian writing system, it doesn't have vowels either. But the reason why we can read this in English is because we are conditioned. We have been programmed and conditioned all of our lives as English speakers. We are familiar with this. So when we're going to ancient Egyptian writing system, we're unfamiliar, so it's going to be difficult. It may be a little bit more challenging. All right, so that's going to be normal. Anyway, the English words read and road would look alike if written without vowels. They'd both be RD. So how do you know the difference? The only way you could tell the difference is by context. The context of the where the word is used at, or as I say here, we could tell the words apart by adding a classifier, aka determinative, of a book for the word read at the end. Like if we put RD and a picture of a book, and then for the street one for road, if we put a RD and put a street, an image of a street, like maybe a crossroad or something, then we'll know what word it is. So all of this to say that the classifiers are very, very important when dealing with the ancient Egyptian language, the writing system. The classifiers are important because there are many homographs, what's called homograph. Homo meaning same and graph meaning script or characters. So there are many words that are spelled alike even in the glyphs, let alone how we transliterate it. So the determinatives or the classifiers become very, very, very important. Without them, we will be totally lost. Okay? And from what I've been seeing, a lot of people need to know this. So make sure y'all spread the word. All right, so now finally, we're gonna start closing it out. We're gonna go through a transliteration and translation exercise very quickly. We're gonna deal with this image right here on the screen. Let me take the comment off the screen. So we're gonna be dealing with this image. So any of you who are brand new, remember when I asked y'all, any of you all that have typed 0, meaning you're brand new to this, you're interested, but you've never, triggered any studying yet, you're going to learn something. Hopefully you already learned something, but you're going to walk with me through this, and you'll be able to leave this and say, hey, man, I just transliterated and translated something. Okay? So here we go. We're going to deal with this image. All right? So one of the first things you do, obviously, is when you see an image like this is a cropped image, but if you see on the internet, there's tons of ancient Egyptian pictures of artifacts, tombs, walls, what have you. First of all, you want to kind of give the image an overview. Just glance it over, just see what you see. So we can quickly see that there's a female sitting in a chair, holding an object, arm extended out, looks like she's moving. This looks like a game. To us, this may look like chess. And she looks like she's playing chess with nobody, like she's playing herself, because nobody's sitting on the opposite end. This looks like a table, and then we see some glyphs. Okay, that's like the first preliminary one-over that everybody can do. But let's get into it, right? So transliteration and translation. So the first question is, what is transliteration? What is it? Transliteration is an orthographic endeavor, meaning it has to do with the script. By the conversion of a text from a source script into a target script. When we transliterate hieroglyphs, we're simply transferring, that's where you get the word trans. Trans means to move. You're simply transferring the glyphs from the source over into the English, which is really the Latin orthography, which is the target script. That's what we're doing when we're transliterating. We're just converting or moving the glyphs over into the English characters, which is really the Latin script. Now, this transfer is not a transference of phonetics, which is how something is pronounced, or semantics, which is what something means, but rather a convention in orthography. Thus, the issues of pronunciations and meaning are not addressed in transliterations. That's very important to know. And from the looks of what I've been seeing, a lot of people need to know this. So make sure y'all spread this word, spread the word. Okay. Transliterations do not address pronunciations or meaning. It's just a way to move from one script, which is the source script, into a target script. And for us, it's transferring the glyphs into the English, into using the English alphabet in some form or fashion. All right. So here are some examples. So we have the Chinese script and then the Latin script. So we have I have the goddess Bastet has come visit me. If y'all hear a cat in the background. All right, so I'm gonna continue. So we have the Chinese script and then we have the Latin script. So this Chinese character comes into the Latin script as a P, I, and N. This character comes into the Latin script as, or English script, as Y-I-N. So this is, we would transliterate this way. And our transliterations happen to be close, if not the same as how we would pronounce it. So we would say pinyin. Now hieroglyphs the same way. So we would take these three glyphs and transliterate it. This first one will be R-A. The second one will be M-S. The third one will be S-U. S-W. Su. Ramasu. All right. That's what a transliteration is. Now, the next question is, what is translation? Translation is the communication of meaning of a source language text by means of an equivalent target language text. Translation depends on knowledge of the language. That's where a lot of people fall short, because you can memorize the glyphs, you can memorize what they're transliterated as, but if you're not knowledgeable about the language, then your translations are vulnerable. You can make mistakes, and from what I've seen lately, a lot of people have been making mistakes. So make sure y'all spread the word, because a lot of people need to know this. All right. So translations depend on knowledge of the language, and specifically the grammar of the language. And as an FYI, you don't know a language until you are competent in its grammar. Remember, I'm saying that. Y'all can quote me. You don't know a language until you are competent in the grammar of that language. Okay? I'm going to post that somewhere. But here's an example. So we have hieroglyphs, again, the same ones. So when we transliterate, so this is going from the hieroglyphs into the transliteration process. So we transliterate as R-A, M-S, and S-W. Now we want to translate it for meaning. So we're moving the meaning over now. So this one is Ra, referring to a deity. And then this one is Mes, which refers to the meaning to give birth. And then this third one is moving the meaning over, which is a pronoun. Him. Okay. And now when we translate this as, it is Ra who gave birth to him. And that's what Ramses' name means. We can say it. And see, this is why translations become a little bit flexible, because you can have three separate different translations, but all three of them are actually saying the same thing. So I can say it is Ra who gave birth to him, or I could say Ra bore him, like as you see up here, or I could just say Ra gave birth to him, etc. And maybe I'll show an example of another example of that later. But let's keep going, because we remember we're dealing with this image here. So now, what are the transliteration and translation method? This is the method. It's not a method. It is the method to translate. Okay, so it's in your best interest, if you're interested in learning the language and whatnot, it's in your best interest to learn these steps right here. As a matter of fact, let me show these steps right here. In this way, learn these steps. Learn what the steps are. And then if you journey, like I said, sign up for the course. We'll be dealing with all this all day long. If you study on your own or whatever the case is, just look at these steps and you do these steps. So there's 4 steps. Step 1 is an observation step. So what you're going to do is you're going to take whatever picture you're dealing with, whether it's a different papyri or wall inscription somewhere or museum items, whatever the case is. You're going to observe the glyphs. And what you're doing in step 1 is you're gonna have to determine the direction in which the glyphs are to be read. That's the first step. The first thing you got to do. That's a quick step though. All right, and I'll explain it. I'll elaborate a little bit. Step 2 is a data collection step. So in step 2, you have to identify and document each individual glyph. Now, at first, that sounds crazy. It sounds like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me I have to identify every single glyph? Now, looking at this picture, it's not too many glyphs in this picture. Like if you were to count all the glyphs you see, it's not that many. But do I have a picture of I thought I had a picture of something else. I don't have a picture of something else to show you that would scare anybody if they read step 2. Let me just see if I can get it real quick. I want to show it to you all. Give me 1 second. One second. Now remember, if you all have any questions, get ready, jot it down and oh wait a minute, 1 second. I moved the wrong thing here. Can't do that. Make sure you jot your questions down. But I just want to show you something quick that will intimidate anybody. You'll just run. You would not be a part of any class. Let me see, where did it go? But I really want to show this, why I'm taking time to dig it up. All right, I don't see it. Let me just grab anything that looks like a whole lot. What's a good one? Nope, not that one. All right, just grab this. Okay. Now, yeah, I want to show you all this. All right, so you all should be able to see it now. Oh, there you go. So y'all can see that. Hopefully y'all can see that. Now, if you heard me say this again, if I say, hey, step 2 is a data collection step, you have to identify and document each and every individual glyph. And then let's say this is the object that you're trying to translate, you're going to just give up. You can be like, nah, I'm just going to ball it up and throw it away. Like, nope, I am not going to have to identify each and every one of these glyphs. But you might think that at first, but it's not that. Here's the thing. It's, in this sense, it's no different than English. So if I go back to this paragraph right here, right? If you're looking at this paragraph, the paragraph, if you count every single character in this paragraph up here, it's a lot. But guess what? The characters repeat themselves. So once you identify a T, you already identified a T. And a T is 3 times in this first word. And there's a lot of T's here. But so my point is, once you identify and know what a T is, you're done. You don't have to do it for every T that you come across because you already did it once. So the same thing here. Once you identify certain glyphs, throughout this text right here that I'm showing now, a lot of glyphs repeat themselves. Okay, so it's not hard at all. So I just wanted to share that with y'all. Don't think it's hard. But that's what step 2 is. Step 2 is you got to identify and document each and every glyph. Step 3 is a pattern recognition step, meaning that you have to take the individual glyphs and you have to mentally or visually group them into the words that they belong to. And then you can use that grouping to then search dictionaries to pull meaning. Okay, that's what step 3 is. It's a pattern recognition step. And step 4 is the last step. You have to apply grammar and take the meanings from step 3 on the individual words and apply grammar, which is morphology and syntax. And now you can come up with a sensible translation. And this is the step that a lot of people miss. And I've seen that a lot in my experience, especially around on YouTube. So people need to know this. So again, I'm gonna ask you all, spread the word. Let people know that you have to gain competency in the grammar to have better, more quality translations. All right. Words do not exist on islands by themselves. So yes, you can look up a word in a dictionary, but how the word is used in the context of something and the form of it and the syntax of where it is will give you a more bullseye, targeted, and better translation. Okay, you got to remember that. And then also, here's another side note. The dictionaries do not have all forms of the words. I'm going to give you an example. There, with one Egyptian word, there is roughly 17 different forms of that word. And each form conveys a slightly different nuanced meaning. Okay? But the dictionary will only have one of those because it's an inventory. A dictionary is an inventory list of the main lexemes in a language, or lemmas, as some people like to call them. These are lexical items, these lexical inventory. That's what a dictionary is. It's not going to have all the different forms of words. It's not going to have the declensional forms of the words or the conjugated forms of these words, the nominalized, the adjectival forms and things like that of these different words. The dictionaries are just not going to have them. They don't. So you have to understand the grammar. Anyway, don't want to spend too much time on that. Moving on. So now here's the same steps, just explained a little bit more elaborated on. So we have step 1 is observation step. So now you determine the direction in which the glyphs are to be read, and here are the possibilities. It's only 2 orientations and 2 directions. The 2 orientations are columns or rows. So if we go back to our picture, you can quickly see that these glyphs are in columns. See how quick that is? We look at these glyphs, they're in columns. Go back to my thing. And 2 orientations, 2 directions, left to right or right to left. And what tool do you use to perform step 1? The tool you use is your eyes. That's it. That's all you need are your eyes, because you're going to look at it. Now, these glyphs right here, the glyphs themselves are facing to the right. That means you're going to read into the glyphs. This is important. You're going to always read into the glyphs as if you're having a conversation with the glyphs. And that's the easiest way to remember it, because when you're talking to a person, you don't talk to the back of their head. You talk to their face. So treat the glyphs the same way. So act like you're having a conversation. You'll know to read into them, which means because they're facing to the right, you're going to read from the right to the left. From the right to the left. Always read facing the glyphs. All right. Let's move on. So these glyphs here are to be read. Let me go back. These glyphs are to be read from the right to the left. And because they're in column orientation and not rows, you're going to go each column. So within the column, you're going to read from right to left, and top down. So you're going to work your way down because it's in columns. Okay. But right to left. Same thing with the next column, next column, next column. All right. Now the order of the columns are usually in the same direction that you're going to be reading the glyph, that the glyphs are pointed to. So this is column number 1. This will be column number 2 that you read. Then you read column 3. Then you read column 4. You're going to be reading even the columns from right to left. But now that is not always the case, and that's called retrograde, columnar retrograde. And I don't want to get into that to confuse anyone. That's for another conversation. This one is simple, and you do read it from right to left within the column, and the columns actually are numbered from right to left.
Real quick,
Yes.
there's a question in the chat that I think you can answer right now. Is from Benny San. So he asked, do these same steps apply to the simplified Sesh Medew Netcher?
Okay, the answer to that is yes. So simplified Sesh Medew Netcher, aka hieratic or whatever, is the exact same. And that's what makes it great, because you don't have to memorize, you don't have to know a different method. It's the same method. All right, same thing. Same thing. All right, again, peace to everybody who joined in. I'm just giving a quick overview of some basic things, and hopefully everybody walk away satisfied and have learned something, or you just got a refresher, and it's all good. All right, but I'm almost done. I'm gonna open up for Q&A, a short Q&A after I'm done. But we're gonna get through this real quick. Okay, so where was I? So that's step 1. Step 2 is a data collection, like as I said, and the tools that you're gonna use to perform step 2 is a sign list or glyph list. And the most popular sign or glyph list that everybody and their mother use is the Gardner sign list. Gardner cemented that in Egyptology in the late 50s, I believe, when he made his grammar, and he organized the glyphs into categories, and the glyphs are described. All right, that's where you're gonna get your data from. Remember, step 2 is a data collection step. So where's the data gonna come from? It's gonna come from a glyph list, aka sign list. And a lot of scholarly works on the language will include a sign list, maybe in the back of the book, in the appendix, and things like that. All right. And now I'm gonna be publishing a grammar, hopefully next year. And of course, I will definitely have a complete sign list, and I actually have one in the beginner's text. Okay, the whole sign list. But that's step 2. So step 3 is a pattern recognition step. This involves you have to detect the group of glyphs that make up words, so that you can search for them in dictionaries. Now, what's helpful about step 3 is knowing and being familiar with determinatives that we went over before. So once you recognize that this glyph is a determinative, that will should trigger your mind to know, okay, this is where this word ends, and another word after another glyph is going to begin a new word. The reason why that's important is because Sesh Medew Netcher, if you look at it, let's go back to our picture. Sesh Medew Netcher don't have any punctuation. There's no commas. There's no periods. There's no capitalizations and lowercase, uppercase, lowercase. None of that. So you have to actually know where the word stops and where a new word begins. And what helps out with that are determinatives. Because determinatives, 99% of the time, when they exist, they're going to be at the end of the word. Okay? Now, the tools that you use in step 3 are going to be your dictionaries. Now, I want to tell you all, if you're in the business of learning this stuff, get all the dictionaries you can. I tell people this all the time. From day one when I start teaching, I tell people get all the dictionaries, all of them. Get all the ones you can, all the ones you can afford. Don't rely on just one dictionary. A lot of these dictionaries out there, they are repeating previous dictionaries. So a lot of them are just repeating things. But then every now and then, because of the advancement of our knowledge in Egyptology, dictionaries will change entries based on current understandings. And so the scholars that simply parrot previous dictionaries, they miss out. But then there's some dictionaries that may include, the later information and updates. So that's why I always tell people to get all of them that you can. And I believe I have them all. I got German ones, French ones, all the English ones, Egyptian to English ones, and so on and so forth. All right, so that's that. Last step 4, is to apply the grammar application, which means you have to know the grammar, and you use the grammar and the meanings that you retrieve from the dictionaries, and then you come up with a sensible translation while the grammar governs your conclusion. Without knowing the grammar, you're prone to make mistakes. Okay? Please spread the word on that. All right, but now you have to come up with a sensible translation adhering to morphological and syntactic rules of the language. And the tool for that is grammar. Okay? So now let's quickly get into it. So now here is our picture. So I kind of just cropped it each step. And so step 1, we're going to determine the direction in which the glyphs are to be read. This is very easy. So I reproduced the glyphs on the right-hand side from the picture. So as I said before, these glyphs are in columns. They're not in rows. So now we already know the orientation. You only got 2 choices. Is it in columns or in rows? The answer is it's in columns. Columns mean that it's vertical. Rows means that it's horizontal. So these are vertical. Now, what direction? There's only 2 possible answers to that. Either they're read from left to right or right to left. And I already answered this before. They're facing to the right. Therefore, you're going to read them from the right to the left. So now we're done with step 1 already. That was quick. So now let's move to step 2. Step 2 is, like, as I said, you have to identify and document every single glyph. But as I said before as well, that sounds crazy at first, but it's not, because once you identify a glyph, and if it's repeated anywhere else, you've already done the work. So you don't have to do it every time you see it. So this is just for the first column. I'm not going to do it for all the columns, just to give you an idea how it's done. So remember, the tool that you use for step 2 is the glyph list down here. So step 2, you're going to use the glyph list. So here we are with step 2. This is the entries for these glyphs coming from the glyph list. And a glyph list, you usually have a table of the Gardner code, what this glyph actually is, a description, and then how it can function. Okay, you see that? So let me just get my arrow here, because I know y'all, I think y'all can see my cursor. But this is column 1. So we have all these glyphs. So we have to identify each one. So this one, you see it and you find it in the glyph list. And there's a effective way of doing this, but that's for a separate conversation that I'll have to go into detail with, and I'm trying to just keep it light and an overview for tonight. So you find this glyph. The Gardner code is D4. That's the glyph. You visually match it up. Description is an I, and then here are the possible functions. If it's used as a logograph, it represents the word iret, which means eye. That's the Egyptian word for eye, like the human eye, or an eye of an animal or human. Iret. It can also represent the logo or the word ma'a, which means to see. Now, phonetically, it represents 2 consonants, and we transliterate those 2 as an I and an R. Ear, etc., etc. Okay? Go to the next one. This here, this seat. Gardner code Q1, the glyph, description, same thing. So I'm not going to read all of it, but y'all can take a screenshot, but that's how you would do it. And you would document this in your analysis of whatever you're trying to translate. And as I said, you don't have to do that for every time you see these glyphs, but the first time you see it, you have to collect this data. You're going to have to collect this data. All right, so that's step 2. Now, moving on to step 3. Now, step 3, I'm using the same column number 1. Step 3, you have to know which glyphs go together to form words. And as I said, the determinatives will help you do this. So in this first column, we have one word that's made up of 3 glyphs. We have another word that's made up of 3 glyphs. And then the final word here is made up of 2 glyphs. This first one is the word wasir. And you have to use these groupings to then search in a dictionary. Now, mind you, something I forgot to say is at all times while you're going through all these steps, it's always going to be in lieu of. Like you are going to always have to refine yourself. You have to refine your findings. You're going to always try to perfect your findings and refine it. So sometimes it could be a hit or miss, especially if you're beginning and you starting out as a beginner. And even if you're a seasoned veteran, you can still make mistakes on your first pass. That's why it's recommended to make several passes. And by that, I mean, you may firstly assume that these 3 glyphs spell out a word. Then you go to the dictionary and you spend like 30 minutes trying to find these 3 glyphs together as a word because you assumed it was a word, but you never find it. Now, all of a sudden, you go back to the picture and you say, okay, maybe these 3 are not the word. Maybe it's these 4 glyphs. So now you're looking for a word that includes these 4 glyphs, and you go to dictionary and you're like, aha, I found it. So that's what I mean by you may have to constantly refine. Okay, but you get better and better and better at this. But what you see on the screen is accurate for these 3. So the first one is wasir. It's found on page 63 in the dictionary, and it gives you the meaning of what it's supposed to represent, Osiris. The second word is really a phrase, a genitive phrase, but that's a whole nother discussion too on what a genitive phrase is. But it's a phrase. It's 2 words really, but together, and it's hemet nasu. Okay, that's found on this page in the dictionary, and it refers to queen, the word queen, or royal wife. You may find it like that. The last one is weret, which means great, to be great, greatness, etc. All right. So that's step 3. That's how step 3 is done. Now, step 4. Just as a pause in step 3. Now, this may seem like it's difficult as I was saying, but you get better and better at it. But here is an English equivalent to how it feels. So again, the chat, I need you all's participation. So what I want you all to do in the chat, or somebody, the first person to get it, I'm gonna highlight your comment. What I want you to do is type out this sentence the proper way. Type out that sentence the proper way. So anybody in the chat, whoever's first, I'm just gonna highlight your answer. But everybody take a stab at it, or at least read it. Read it to yourself. Okay, Ramza, that is definitely not the sentence that's on the screen. That's definitely not the sentence that's on the screen, Ramza. All right, Benny San, I think he has it first. This is a short sentence without space that you can read. Benny San, you are like 99% there. You just missed one character. One character. So I would still give it to you, but Sean P has it fully. The only thing you missed, Benny, you didn't put the S on spaces. You put space. And so it's spaces. But that's a small thing. That's nothing. This is a short sentence without spaces that you can read. Okay. So everybody get that, right? And again, the reason why we can do that is because our minds look for patterns. Looks for patterns. Okay, so we know this because we are familiar and we're grounded in English. We have mastered our writing system. Okay, so in ancient Egypt, but the hieroglyphs, this is how it will feel over time. You're not going to be able to do this at on the onset. I'm gonna tell you, so don't beat yourself up, but you will get better and better and better with time. Now I have another one down here to prove to you that is language specific. So this is the same as this in terms, not in meaning or anything, but in terms of there's no spaces between the words. But this language is Spanish. So does anybody in the chat speak Spanish? Anybody in the chat speak Spanish? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Whoever speaks Spanish in the chat, properly type out this sentence in the chat. If there's anybody that speaks Spanish in the chat or knows Spanish, I'm not going to wait too long because I suspect there's no one in the chat that speaks Spanish. Where is my Latin Spanish speaking community? Anybody in the chat? I'm not going to wait too long. He said Google Translate. No, see, I'm not looking for the translation. That's the thing. I'm not looking for the translation. I just want to parse. This is called parsing. I want to just parse this sentence. Keep it in Spanish, but parse it. Tell us where the spaces go. Tell us where the spaces go. And again, like I said, I'm not gonna wait too long. I just suspect that no one. Okay, LA, Oklahoma gave it a shot. Let's see. And Benny San. LA, Oklahoma was first. Esta es un francés. Oh, he has francés, but it's frase. I don't know. See, okay, but the point remains, all right, because I don't want to get stuck on that, all right. The point remains is that it's language specific, and whatever your mother language is that you're grounded in, you're gonna be able to do this with no problem at all. All right. So let's keep going. Now we have done step where we left off at step 3. Now we are at step 3. Will be able to transliterate the entire text that you're dealing with. Why? Because in step 2 you gathered all of the transliteration equivalents. Like for this I, it's IR. For the seat, it's either West, WS, or AS. And even ST. These are the possibilities. You transliterate this throne or this seat as ST or WS or AS or even HTM. And this is what I mean by you got to constantly refine, because if you assume the transliteration is HTM and you try to go look for it in dictionary, you don't find it, or whatever the case is, you got other options. All right. But don't beat yourself up, because it's going to take you a while when you're first beginning this. All right. But you're going to get exponentially faster and faster and faster. All right. I can tell you this picture right here. I mean, it's probably not fair because I always use this picture. But even a long time ago, like I could look at this and I don't need, that's why we practice Freestyle Fridays. We practice without any books at all. And that's what motivates and keeps you sharp, is by doing that and having fun with that. So we go through this we know all these glyphs, and that keeps you going. But anyway, so here's a transliteration for the picture. Transliteration is Wasir Hemet Nasu Weret, Nebet Tawi, Neferet Iri, Moretni Mut, Ma'acheru Ker Waser Netcher A. That's the full transliteration of all the glyphs. So we go down the column here. We have Waser, Hemet, Nesu, Weret. Then we have Nebet Tawi. Then we have Neferet Iri, Moretni Mut, Ma'acheru Ker Waser Netcher A. All right. Now the translation, obviously, you would have to know, as I said, to apply grammar. And I'm going to show you an instance of how and why. Because in column 1, the second word in green is really the way it is seen is Nesu Hemet. Nesu Hemet. Now, if you don't know the grammar of the language and the various different grammatical rules and classifications and things like that, you would assume that that's what the word is, Nesu Hemet. But it's actually not. It's an inverse genitive. And so the word is Hemet Nesu, which means royal wife. The word Hemet means wife, and Nesu means king or royalty. So we can say royal wife or the king's wife, or we can idiomatically use one word and just say queen. They all mean the same thing. King's wife, royal wife, queen. All three of those are options to translate this word because they mean the same thing. Okay, but you have to know the grammar to reverse that because it's an inverse genitive. All right. So the translation here is the Osiris or the Wasir, the great queen, lady of the two lands. Nebet Tawi is lady of the two lands. And then the name, we have the Shinu here. Her name is here. The person who's sitting in the seat is Neferet Iri, Moretni Mut. So this is none other than Nefertari. Now the word, her name is Neferet Iri, but people pronounce it Nefertari. So this is Nefertari, and this is an image from her tomb. That's her name. Her name is Nefertari, beloved of Mut, the deity Mut. Moretni Mut, the beloved one of Mut. And then Ma'keru, which is true of voice. And Kher Wasir Netcher, which means in front of or in the presence of Wasir or Osiris Netcher, the great god. Okay, that's what this means. All right, so we just quickly did that exercise. And you see, that's it. All right. And that's all I wanted to share. Let's see. Do I have anything else? What is this right here? Nope. That is not anything. That is the offering formula. That's it. So like I said, I don't want to be too long, but hopefully you all have learned something. And those of you who are already in the mix, maybe this is a refresher and, have some fun. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me and going through this. But remember, what I would like to see more people, if you're interested in Egypt now. If you're not interested in learning about Egypt, then disregard anything that I'm about to say. If you're interested in Egypt for whatever reasons, it doesn't matter. If you think the Egyptians are your direct ancestors, hey, it's all good. If you just like ancient Egypt because it's mysterious and you just got a big curiosity, that's all good too. But if you're studying it because you want to know about the culture and what the people did in those time periods and stuff like that, hey, that's all good too. No matter what the reason is, if you're interested in ancient Egypt, you have to learn the language, at least at a fundamental level. You don't need a PhD. You don't need to take college grad courses or things like that and whatnot. But you have to gain a level of competency in the language. That's the only way you're ever going to learn about a culture is through its language. Don't let anybody tell you different, and nobody should be telling you different. I don't know of anybody that would tell you different, but You have to approach a foreign culture from apart from your mother culture through the language. Why? Because language is the DNA of culture. It captures the psyche of the people. The language does that. All right. So again, we have classes, we have courses. You could join and sign up and register at any time. It's self-paced. You can go at your own pace, fast, slow, medium, super fast, super slow. You could be a rabbit or a turtle. It doesn't matter. All right. And you definitely learn the fundamentals. Right now, we have the beginner's level wide open. Everything is available now. You can sign up whenever you want. Okay. Once I publish the grammar, I will also offer public, high level grammar classes as well. But I need to finish the textbook. And that's what I'm working on. That's my project. And, I'm pushing myself to have it done by next year. All right. But even in the beginners level of the classes, I teach grammar. I just, to an extent. So it's not like, I don't deal with grammar at all or anything like that. You have to have some grammar, even at a beginner's level. But you ask people who are in the class right now. We dive deep. I'm only waiting on the book because I need people to have something in hand to follow and go through as a textbook. I need to produce a textbook, but I still give grammar lessons and things like that. So anyway, just wanted to let everyone know that. And so tonight we just walked through a summary, of the steps. So I guess we spend a little bit of time. Any Q&A. Let me I can shrink my screen now. And Emicat has been patiently sitting. So if y'all have any questions, make sure you at Seshu in the chat. So if you have any questions in the chat about anything that I went over that I can address, I do my best. And yeah, just type it in now. And then after I spend a little time addressing any questions that may come up, if you all want to continue to hang out and deal with questions outside of what I covered tonight now, outside of, this brief overview of the nuts and bolts of the writing system, then I will start a new live and then we can hang out more. All right. The night is still kind of young. Sleep is for the weak, as we used to say. So, but right now we almost up on 2 hours and I want to stop this at 2 hours. So if there's any questions, definitely type it in now. All right. Let me see. I can put the chat, some overlay here. All right. Seshu, why? Okay. I think we have some questions. Everything is everything. So let's see. Seshu, why is that woman painted red and not yellow? Okay. That's a good question. The women in the artwork for the 3,000 plus duration of Egypt, they were painted either or. They were painted in a variety of desher, which is a shade of red. We tend to say reddish brown. That's how we describe it today. Or yellow, or pale white, even though they're not white. And people, when I say that, sometimes people they get shocked. They're like, what you mean? There's white people in Egypt? Like, no, they're painted white for a reason, and we can have a conversation of a time about that. But they either painted red, as you see Nefertari is here, yellow, pale, on a very white side, and then you have women, not only women, but people, and it's not too many people, painted black, like Ahmose Nefertari, like Mentu Hotep, because they are painted in their death. Remember, black is represented as a completion of life and death. It represents death. It represents fertility. The other different things that is have the metaphoric associations. So to answer your question, Nefertari is painted red here. It's not odd at all or anything like that. Okay, so in her whole tomb. Now this is just a very small picture portion of her whole tomb. If you look at the bulk and more of her tomb, you'll see the rest of how she's depicted. All right. Now hold up. Let me tell you what a lot of scholars will say is the reason why the men are painted red, a shade of deshire, reddish brown, and women are painted yellow. Scholars tend to lean towards the fact that men worked outdoors and women worked indoors. And so the redding shows that they had duties, outdoor duties, public and outdoor duties. So that's the sentiment of quite a few scholars. So if you were to look that up, all right. Let me keep going because I don't want to go too long. Benny San says, how long have you been learning Netcher and languages in general? Boy, I've been teaching over 10 years. Okay. And I would say I've been, from the time I started learning it until now, it would have to be, we're in 2024. I would have to say it's been since, wow, I've been teaching for over 10 years. Let's see. That's a good question. I got to think back. I got to think back. I want to say 2009. I want to say 2009. All right. You make me think, but I right now I would say off the top of my head 2009. So hopefully that, kind of answers your question though. Yep. Now my formal, just so you know, because this question may come up, especially in the YouTube streets with the behavior that I've seen. I have my formal training from Dr. Rkhty Amen. And Dr. Rkhty Amen, as you all may or may not know, if you don't know her, you definitely should. She is definitely, the queen mother of Sesh Netcher and teaching a lot of people in this community. I don't like calling it the conscious community, but the community. And she produces teachers. A lot of people that she's taught actually become teachers in and of themselves and everything like that. But she's a PhD doctor. She's actually a real PhD doctor. So we call her Dr. Rkhty Amen. We're not saying doctor just as, some polite nickname. But that's where I received my formal teaching and training through her. All right. And that was long ago. So next, I'm gonna keep it going. I'm just trying to see if any more questions that are addressed. Remember, if you have a question, you got to @Seshu so I can see it. So Donnie Williams says, it's been often said in the CC how to ask a question. What is the logic behind knowing how to ask a question? Yeah, it's very important to ask well-formed questions. And questions is an issue of like logic, because your question has to be well-formed. Just because you can here's the thing. Just because you can type out something and put a question mark at the end, everybody thinks that that's a question because it's marked with the mark of a question. We call it a question mark. So you put a string of words together and then you just plop a question mark at the end. People think that makes whatever a question. And in a sense, it is a question, but how well formed it is. So a question is supposed to solicit answers, and so how a question is asked is going to influence how an answer is given. And so, that's why it's important to pay attention to all these things. Whatever it is you are inquiring about or you're on a quest for in question, you better word it right so that you can solicit the right answers. And if you don't know any better, the answer you receive may or may not even answer your question, or it may go over your head, as we tend to say, go over your head. So it's very important. I'm just gonna keep it going. Let's see. Keep going. Remember, you have to add Seshu so I can see. So the questions can stand out. I'm getting down. Oh, Donnie Williams says she attended the Chicago Oriental Institute in Chicago, which is the top college institution for Egyptology in the United States. And she attended the University of Illinois. Okay, so she's a linguist and Egyptologist. All right, you all can check her out, look her up. Okay, and she's an elder. She's our elder. She's been around. She's been around and a colleague of Cheikh Anta Diop. All right, so I don't want if you in the chat are not familiar with Dr. Rkhty Amen, just to kind of clue you in, she is contemporary with Diop. She translated, I think, 2 of Diop's works from French to English. She also teaches Mandarin, and Chinese, and some other languages as well. Okay, and she's an elder because she's have definitely aged gracefully, and she's an elder. So because people, when I mentioned her in the past, people wonder, well, how come she doesn't do videos and not on YouTube? Like, no, she's not gonna. If Diop was still with us, he wouldn't be doing like these things. People are seasoned. They're veterans. They're like in a retired situation, So Dr. Rkhty Amen has put in a lot of work. She's one of the founding members or whatever to ASCAC. She's like I said, she's translated I think 2 of Diop's works from French to English. So she's worked with that. She's been to Senegal, to do all of that stuff. What else? I mean, a lot of things. So anyway, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that, because some people is like, well, how come she's not like more visible and things like that? But she was. Like you look her up, you'll see videos of her speaking at different conferences and things. And maybe I'll share some of them another time. But let me keep going down.
I put a link. Sorry, and I just said I put a link because on our website on seshmiddlenetcher.com we have different we have pages for different elders and just a short bio on them and their qualifications and things like that. So I put one for Dr. Rkhty Amen there because I know some people might not be able to find it other places.
Okay, that's good. Yep. So FS, I'm just call you FS. Peace, greeting, because some of y'all are meeting for the first time. So again, this is your first time engaging me and me to you. So greetings and welcome, and hopefully make sure y'all subscribe to the channel and click the notification when we go live. All right. So Seshu, why some hieroglyphs embossed and others indented? Okay. People usually call it raised relief, and I forgot what they actually call the other one.
Sunken?
Yeah, sunk relief. Yeah, that makes sense. Sunk relief and raised relief. That's like the 2 common descriptions of that: raised relief and sunk relief. And why they're done, or like if there's something that triggers them doing it one way or the other, it will usually be the surface, the material itself, because the raised relief takes more work because what you're doing, you're carving around the image that you want to leave there. So you have to carve everything around it. Whereas sunk relief, you're carving in and you only have to deal with the image that you are trying to portray. Okay. So one is definitely takes a lot more work than the other. And so there's a switch back and forth depending on, for the most part, depending on the surface, the tomb, whether they plastered it first or if it's a natural object, natural rock or whatever the case is. If it's limestone, if it's granite, all of those things come into play. All right. So hopefully that helped you out a bit. Let's see. I'm going to keep on going down. So Benny-san, have you seen depictions of people or deities painted the color white on temple walls or reliefs? Yes, I have. Matter of fact, Benny-san, I'm going to help you out. Look up the papyrus of the so-called Book of the Dead of Ani. There's a scene in there, the funeral scene, the funerary procession scene. And you're going to see women that are painted white or very pale in color. And there's a reason for that. Those women are professional mourners. They're crying and they're pulling their hair. Okay. And it's a reason why they're painted these colors and why they're pulling their hair and so on and so forth. Okay. So I'm just putting you onto one at least. So check that out. The Book of the Dead of Ani. You probably Google some of the images and look for the funeral procession scene where Annie's being taken from his home, his residence to the tomb. All right. I have it, but I don't want to take too much time to dig it up. All right, let's keep on going. Let's see. I'm going down. Remember, you have to add Seshu. So I'm skipping. I know you all are having a conversation among yourselves, but I'm trying to just get to the questions. Seshu, what is the grammatical function of the Kim glyph in the word Kemet? Okay, grammatical function. The grammatical function is, see, you about to start a whole nother conversation, Sat 12. You trying to start trouble. You trying to start trouble. First of all, if you're talking about the kingdom's name, Kemet, because remember, see, now look how your question is asked. You said, what is the grammatical function of the Kim glyph in the word Kemet? There is no such thing as the word Kemet because there are a variety of words that are Kemet. You see how it could become a problem? But to cut it short, if you're talking about the kingdom name, Kemet, then that word itself is a substantive. That is a toponym, and it refers to a place. Okay, so the Kim glyph itself in that word operates as a phonograph. It's not for the picture of what it is. It doesn't matter if people believe it's a charcoal or an alligator's tail or an alligator's foot or any of that. None of that matters inside that word because it's not functioning as a pictograph. It's not the instance of what you see, what you get. It only serves, its only purpose is to stand for or function as or represent the consonants K and M. Okay, it's a biliteral representing the consonant K and M. So based on what we discussed tonight, it will be a phonograph. Okay, so hopefully that answers that question right there. Let's keep going down. Let's keep going down. Remember to add Seshu if you got any questions. I'm gonna get down to the bottom. I'm almost caught up. Seshu, I have noticed in the 18th dynasty, A, most queens are brown, B, goddesses yellow, gold, C, some noble women beige or yellow, Burbage ancestry possible in some areas. No, what you're seeing more than likely is that women that are painted yellow, like today we would say those are the bougie women. Those are the women who are prissy and bougie because they they are indoors, and they perform jobs that are of high esteem indoors, as opposed to women, the women in the female, gender, women who have less prestigious jobs and also may have outdoor public jobs. Okay. But when it comes to men, most of the men, period, worked outdoors or in jobs that involve them outdoors. Okay. And so they have that brownish red, the share variation. All right. So, and it could be a combination of a few things. Now we say gold. Remember, gold is what's said to be the skin of the gods because it doesn't tarnish and it lasts. And so it speaks to the permanency or the immutability of deities in the culture, why their skin is gold. Okay, and then you have deities that are blue, deities that are green, deities that are black, for other reasons, for what those colors are metaphorically associated. All right, let's keep on going. Anything else? All right, we got another one. We got one more. So this is last. This is like last. Is last? No, almost. I asked because it reminds me of the colors in the Kenya cosmogram. Some painted white, red, yellow, or black. Interesting too that we still describe people of the world with those colors. Okay. All right. Sat 12. Does the Dr. Rkhty Menha agree with Diop on the meaning of Kemet? I'm not sure what her stance is currently, but you have to understand that we all know that Diop's quote unquote work on the meaning of Kemet was not Diop's work. That's the work of another gentleman that whose name is in the footnote of that specific portion of Diop's book. We went over this before, so you may want to catch it in our archives. But that's actually not Diop's work. Okay, so hopefully everybody's clear on that by now. Okay, hopefully everybody's clear on that by now. All right. The definite consensus, what I'll say to this, so hopefully people can move on, is that we all agree, everybody agrees that the ancient Egyptians were Africans. And hopefully that right there alone is enough to form an agreement, and people can move on past the anachronistic application of modern social construct of race going backwards in ancient times. That to me is the most ridiculous thing to do. But if everybody can just admit and say that the ancient Egyptians were Africans and the civilization is a homegrown African civilization, I would hope to think that everybody can agree to that and move forward. All right, let's keep it going. Oh, that was the last question. All right, so last question from me to you all. Because I'm going to end this. This is 2 hours. I'm going to end this now. But, and it is late, but how many of you in the chat would like to hang out longer and expand the conversation? Because I wanted to keep the conversation limited to what I discussed tonight for this video, because this is going to be in our archives. It's going to sit there, and I would ask you all to do us a favor by sharing it to anybody you think could be interested. Share the video around, spread the word, because our channel is we try to be more educational and take the information in a serious manner, although we could still, we have fun, crack jokes and stuff like that. But it's not quite the attractive appeal of the drama and the bickering and things like that will garnish more views and all of that good stuff. So we do need assistance in spreading the word, sharing the video and stuff like that. All right. So that's what we ask. But I'm asking you all, do you all want to expand the conversation and for me to go live in this and go live after that, after we end this? All right, I see somebody said, of course. See, I'm not sure if it's gonna be enough for you all, but I'm gonna go ahead and end this, and then you all stay tuned. Stay put. If you all want to hang out more, just stay put. Hopefully, everybody here subscribe. Make sure you thumb up the video too, because algorithms are involved. That's how people search and they find us. So thumb up the video. If you learned something, thumb it up. If you liked anything I said, thumb it up. If you just like Emmy Ket's name on the screen, thumb up the video. If you like the background, thumb up the video. Okay? Find something to like and thumb up the video. All right. So it looks like we may just fire up another live after this, but here I'm going to go ahead and end it. I appreciate everybody tuning in and hanging out. Emmy Ket, do you have anything to close out with?
Not really. I think that was actually really good. And just to let everybody know, so that was season 1, episode 1. So we're definitely going to be having more of this kind of stuff. I know, in the past, a lot of people have been asking for this. Donnie has been asking for this. I know. So you'll definitely be seeing more of the regular or the original Sesh type of format. That's it. But really, I think that was really good. It's a good refresher even for me, and I think everybody else is really going to find this useful.
Okay. So okay, you gave a good suggestion. I'm gonna start a new one now so that the link to it can be shared here. All right. Or you all just stay tight, stay tuned in, get your cup of tea, get your biscuits, get your chips, and all that stuff, and we're gonna say Shem Hotep, and we will see you all next time. But I really appreciate everybody tuned in, and hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you leave satisfied. That's what Shem Hotep means. We say ETM Hotep, it means welcome and be satisfied, and then Shem Hotep, which means to depart or to leave within satisfaction. All right, so it's like taking a doggy bag to go. All right, so hopefully you learned something, and you're pleased. So I'm gonna say Shem Hotep.